Welcome back to Naval Action, and today we're going to have a look at the Bellona, which is, I sort of guess it's a third rate. We'll talk about that in a moment. It's classed as a third rate in game, of course, but it's kind of a third rate plus, to be honest. So the Bellona is, I think, the oldest British ship design in the game, and perhaps the second or third oldest overall, the Land being the oldest. The Bellona was the prototype of the British Navy's 74-gun third rates. She was ordered in 1758 and launched and commissioned in 1760, and she saw her first activities blockading the French in Brest, but it was perhaps shortly after that, about a year after that, where she took her first scalp, and that was the French ship Courageous, which was a third rate as well. In that one, it was actually the Bellona and a British frigate called the Brilliant, and they were up against two French frigates and a third rate. The Brilliant managed to run the two Frenchies away, and the Bellona forced Courageous to strike her colours, and later on she would be the Courageous became part of the British fleet. The Bellona then went for a bit of sleep for a while, until in the 1780s she was called back into action during the pesky Americans' Revolution, which I always considered to be British versus British. But anyway, onwards and upwards. Probably her most famous engagement came much later. So in 1799 she forced the surrender of a couple of French frigates, but it was 2 years later, in the Battle of Copenhagen, that she had probably her biggest engagement in a port battle, a full-on port battle, where the Brits were attacking Copenhagen, and it was a huge engagement. One of the commanders there was Nelson, and this is the famous battle where the commander of the British fleet actually couldn't see very well because of smoke, so we can all appreciate that, can't we? And he thought that Nelson was perhaps in a spot of bother. A few of the British third rates had got themselves grounded, including the Bellona. They were still firing, they were just in shallow waters firing away. Am I taking friendly fire there? In shallow waters firing away. And the British commander couldn't quite see whether or not the Brits were in trouble. So what he thought he'd do is he'd offer a retreat command. Now, the Articles of War back in those days said that what you could do is you could offer a retreat. Look at that. You could offer a retreat. I'm slightly I'm playing a lower down bishop here just so I could talk while I walk, and gosh. So the commander thought he'd offer Nelson a retreat because the Articles of War said that if you felt you could prosecute the attack, you could ignore the retreat order. And Nelson acknowledged the retreat order, but then famously held his telescope to his blind eye. And when the order was confirmed, he made some comment about, well, there has to be at least one time where being blind is an advantage, and he basically just ignored the order. Hurrah! The battle fought on for hours, and to be honest, both fleets pretty much exhausted themselves. It was a huge encounter. Both ships exhausted themselves. The British ships of the line on the left flank had basically been pounded out of manoeuvrability, but in doing so had crippled the fleet facing them. And arguably the Danes surrendered a little bit too early, or at least accepted a truce that turned into a surrender a little bit too early, in that their reserves, that's terrible, their reserves may well have had an advantage over the British reserves, and I don't think the Danes realised just how much damage had been done to the British sols. Those on the left flank of the harbour had pretty much all of their manoeuvrability bashed out of them, and those on the right had found themselves more or less grounded in the shallows. And then to add more merriment to it, the British fleet was beginning to come into the shooting area of Copenhagen's forts, and that would have just been a disaster for the Brits. However, the Danes accepted the truce and effectively sued for peace with the Brits, which also helped fight the Russians at the time. And as a result, a dozen Danish ships were captured, 2 sank, 1 exploded after the battle, tragically killing 250 men on board. And the Brits were so badly bashed up that even though they took 12 prize ships, they could only crew one of the ships back that they'd captured. So of the 12, they only crewed 1 back, and that ship was actually used to ferry back the wounded. So like most of the British ships, we tend to see that form over function over form rules the way, so it looks a bit bricky, which is the way of pretty much every British ship. But the Bellona, which became the blueprint, as I've said, for the British third-rate fleets, put your teeth in, Jay, is a very interesting build in that, like the Ingermanland, she can hold 32-pound longs on her primary gun deck, and as a result she puts out more than, well, almost 20% more damage than a third rate, and she has pretty much the same performance as a third rate, more or less the same speed, slightly less actually if you do put the big 32-pounders on the bomb, 6 leagues, good grief. So slightly less speed, about 11 if you do put on the heavyweight guns on the gun deck. About the same turn rate as a third rate. She turns, for a big ship, it's about the last of the big ships where you can turn through irons without getting too scared. One of the problems with the big ships is that, as I'm doing now, as you turn through irons, I'm just wondering if I can separate these two. As you turn through irons, your speed dies horribly. And as a result of your speed dying horribly, you do, especially in the bigger Commodore and Rear Admiral fleets, you do leave yourself open for a boarding, which is a terrible happenstance for any captain in an AI game, an AI fleet game. You don't want to be losing your ship through boarding. It's a Jura, unless it's a first rate and someone recaps it for you. So the Bellona, as I described this in the title, is the first amongst equals. She was the first of what became 40-odd ships that really were based off this design, and she was also, she can also be described, I didn't get as much into that as I want, she can also be described easily as a sort of third-rate plus, and the reason you can say that is because of the extra speed and the extra damage that she's capable of putting out. So almost 20% more damage than the rest of the third rates, and really you just sacrifice a tiny amount of speed and a tiny amount of turn rate. How are these two doing? Oh, my guy's going to lose this one. Let's see if we can stick some in. I think I would always take a Bellona into a port battle over a regular third rate, although the armour is pretty much the same between the, well, it is the same, it's not pretty much the same. The extra firepower is excellent. Having the same manoeuvrability means why wouldn't you take the Bellona, really? And as long as you're not up against Pavels, Vix and Santis, I reckon she's the next one to be called in to the fray. You can craft her at level 40. The blueprint drops from the Connie or the third rate. Payload is just brutal. The damage she can do is brutal. Now if this was a Victory or a Santi and I was turning through irons like this, you start going backwards real quick. I just need to try and help Bloody out here. And then let's turn the other way through irons now. But you can see I'm manoeuvring through irons without too big a disability. I've got this one set up with powder monkeys and magazine access. So my reload isn't too bad. I'm not using F5 because this is a fleet mission and my goal here is to hit as many ships as possible. If I was up against proper players, or if I was in a port battle, I certainly wouldn't be firing off both broadsides with so much abandon. Still minus speed. So as far as a loadout's concerned, so craftable at 40, which is fine. And as I say, drops from the third rate or the Connie as a blueprint. So you can put her on. You can use 32 pounds on the bottom gun deck, which is huge, as I've said. You can't use carronades other than the weather deck and the bow chasers, so that's a little bit interesting. Let's get that down to 250 and ram him up his backside and see if we can help our matey out in the boarding action. Not really. It's a bit average as far as crew deaths were concerned. They must have all ducked. So 32 pounders on the bottom deck, so there's 14 guns on the bottom deck, 18 pounders on the middle deck, there's another 14 guns. 9 pounders on the weather deck, that's where you could choose to go with 32 pound carronades. Oh hello, the pirates are going after the Swedes. Ooh, a lot. That's because the Swedes are giving the pirates a bit of trouble up north, so I think the pirates are going to hurt them in the homeland. The weather deck, £9 or £32 carronades. Off the bow, you can use £9 or £68 carronades. And off the stern, your only choice is carronades. And again, you're firing small motor vehicles off the stern with 68 pounders. So, gosh, I believe is the correct term for that. Let's see if we can spoil this guy's Christmas. A bit lower, Jay. Where did that go? Graphically hit. That'll be the end of you, pal. And we've got one off the other side. I'm going to ignore that shit there. And get stuck into this fella. And these, the guns on this are just beautiful, man. And we might have got a little bit rammy with this fella, but so what? He's not going to board us. Not quite sure how they didn't hit. And if he does board us, he's in deep doo-doo. So, like I say, I'm playing, I think, a flag captain mission here, just 2 down. on my current rank, so it's all a bit easy, but it helps me do the ship reviews without dying, which, although amusing, I'm sure it might be, stops me thinking about what I'm meant to be saying. Let's have a little look at the scores on the doors. I've done a fair number of leaks, eh? Alrighty, can I turn inside him? Let's have a little go. Nice if I could. You've really got a manual sail. Once you get to the third rates and above, and I don't want him to turn towards me, you've got a manual sail just about everything. Otherwise you don't get the... Yeah, I'm not going to waste a shot on this fella because he's going down, clearly. So no point in wasting a shot on him. Instead, move some to Pally over here. And let's have a chortle as we... I can't believe it's not butter the side of his ship. Yep, that's gotta hurt. And now we should be up on this side. Foxy's he's not protected his port very well, has he? And here's Ben. Say goodnight, Ben. There's 6 leaks, so Ben's going to struggle. Let's get my sails going again. Have I got anyone behind me? I'm just going to fire these off. I won't hit from here, but just listen to this noise. I'll stop me gibbering and listen to this. I think that kill that you saw pop at the top was that. It just fired 2 small Priuses out the back, and I think just that ship died. 68 pounders, it's ridiculous. My kids are heavier than that, not as heavy as that. It's all going wrong for Team Red. Is he dead? Hard to tell. Hey, don't you be blowing up over there, Foxy. Sort that fire out, buddy. So I really like the bell pull. It feels, I know the stats say it's not, but it feels more manoeuvrable than a third rate. I mean, it's definitely lumpier than running around in a Connie, of course. But, and it's much tankier than the Ingy. Almost, well, I've got an Oak version here that's 8,400, I think, armour, which is loads of armour. You've got a few HP on the front there, but not pitching, so let's save it for... This Jay's quite... Look, this fella's quite healthy. Let's depower. Slow down a bit as well, actually, see if I can't get everything reloaded. Then we'll see if we can do anything about him feeling quite so healthy. So let's pop the nose down. And appears I killed the sea. Haha, let that be a lesson to you, Poseidon. Right, what we got? We got 3 up. Now 2 are here. Well, that one there he's sunk. He just doesn't know it yet. So let's swing around to the other side. And when I say swing around, let us move this multi-storey car park with cannons on it. Fire a couple of fridges out the back. Kaboom! 2 hits, 2 leaks. We've just installed a garage door on the side of that ship. Well, that's whenever you fire your back guns, you get a kill. That's how powerful they are. Let's just move the sails round so I can whip around a bit quicker. Alrighty. What do you reckon about there? A little bit too high. So you can see what a splendid mess she makes of her foes. How many have we got up? We've got a few up. Two up. So let's knock this down. Hopefully there's 3 on 1 over there. I'll let them get some XP. You got to let your AI get XP. How else are they meant to level up? So, I'm a big fan of the Bellona. Of the bigger ships, I think she handles nicely enough that you don't feel like you're driving a car park, a multi-storey car park, but at the same time, 74 guns is 74 guns. Finish her off with the next broadside. You going to try and cut in front of me, little man? Yeah. Well, be like that then. Just depower, so I'm not showing any of my bottom as I come past. See if we can get the weather deck loaded. Flush to the wind, which didn't seem to work. What's going on? Turn around the other way, route on the other side. Prepare the fridges. And Carventus Algaroth is not long for this world. Can't see bugger all. I didn't get a kill, that's very disappointing. There's something wrong with my fridges. Both hit. Try and keep my sails flush with the wind as I turn, just to bring around a little bit quicker. And keep her healing. Healing in my favour. Oh, you go, look, she's trying to stern camp me, you fool of a tuck. Keep the sails coming round. It's good that the AI tries to stern camp you. It's bad that they're bad at it. That's gotta hurt, eh? Alright, straighten the sails out. So Carventes has geniusly in his stern camping efforts put himself straight into the wind, and as far as I can tell, he's trying to use his sails to paddle his way out. I suspect that's not going to go too well for him. By the time I get level, my guns will have reloaded. I don't know what my 4 AI are doing off in the distance. So, too long, didn't read. Better than a third rate. the prototype for British 74 gunners for the rest of the for the next 50 years. 50 years in service. Big 32-pound longs on the bottom gun deck. It's a third-rate plus in my books. I would pick her always above a third rate in a port battle. Enough armour. Can turn okay, as you can see here, through chains. So as I turn through chains, because I've got my sails nice and positioned there, although I will drop to boardable, I don't stay there long, which is the most important thing. This is the danger with going through chains, is that while you're down below 3.5, if there was some muppety AI near you, then they'll chuck the ropes out and get on board. Just let the sails just go past the trim. Now open her up. And there should be the coup de grace. Focus a bit more, Mr. J. She's just showing her pull to me. 4 weeks. 21 shots, 2 cannons. And you, my friend, are going to be diving sport pretty soon. We'll just carry on circling her. So how did we go? Not so bad. We'll get 5 kills and an assist. 450 odd hits. We were robbed of a kill, to be honest, by the capture of Bras de Jeheil. He's trying to pretend to be a merc at the moment, so I can't kill him. There we go, that's it done. So, if you enjoyed that, give us a like and a subscribe. I would recommend getting hold of a Bellona. They're great fun. And I will catch you on the ocean, and I will see you. Cheers.